Hey everyone, how's it going? Forrest here, again with another installment of my complete analysis of all of J.S. Bach's chorale harmonizations. Today we're looking at O großer Gott von Mach, which translates to, O God, great in your power. Now this chorale has instrumental interludes in between the choral phrases, but because this channel, or at least the focus of my research and my analysis is on Bach's vocal writing, I took out the instrumental interlude. So if you're looking for a complete analysis of this particular movement, you're going to have to go elsewhere. But if you're interested in the chorale portion, that's what we're going to be looking at today. So that being said, let's hop into the analysis. We have two flats in the key signature. We start on D major. We end on D major. So that's kind of interesting, actually. We have a start on the dominant, and we end the whole chorale on the dominant. Which is unusual, definitely unusual. We're used to a perfect authentic cadence at the end, but we get a half cadence at the end. But regardless, D major with two flats still implies G minor, so we have a starting point. However, our first cadence, I'm going to call it a perfect authentic cadence on the weaker side of the perfect authentic cadence in the key of C minor. So we're looking for a point in which we modulate. So we start off with D major, which is our dominant 5. Then we go to G minor, G, D, G, and B flat. That's our tonic triad in root position. We then have A, C, F, and C, which is an F major triad in first inversion. That would be uppercase 7, 6, or some people might refer to this as 5, 6 of 3, because it usually does go to 3, like it does in this case. B flat, F, and D, which is a root position B flat major triad, which is 3. And then we go to D, F, F, and A, but I think this B natural is actually our chord tone, and this is instead 7, 6 of 4, because B natural is the leading tone to C, which is our subdominant in the key of G minor. And I think for the sake of analysis, I'm just going to go ahead and say that, sorry, we're not remodulating back to the key of G minor yet. We're modulating to the key of C minor, and we can call this 7, 6, which goes to 1. It's kind of an unusual perfect authentic cadence, but it is a dominant functioning chord going to a tonic functioning chord where the tonic is in the melody. So I think it's an authentic cadence for sure, but it has elements of imperfection and perfection according to the textbook. But I err more on the side of the perfect authentic cadence because I hear it that way with the C in the melody. But that being said, we move to the next phrase where we have a half cadence in the key of G minor. And we start off again with another C minor triad, C, C, E, and G, which I think immediately kicks us off in G minor, which is now our 4 rather than our 1 in the key of C minor. And then we have B flat, C, E natural, and G, which is C major, or it's a C major triad with a flat 7, so it would be 5, 7 of 7, which is very interesting. We have like a kind of an interesting chord here. I'm tempted to call this like, what is exactly going on here? We have kind of a cross relationship here between what's going on in the voices. We have E flat, E natural, F sharp, G, A, F sharp. This ascending line, E natural, F sharp, and G, is indicative of the melodic minor scale, but B flat and A are. Am I messing something up here? No, I am messing something up here. This would be 4, 4, 2. Apologies about that. That rant I just went on there. No, this would be a C7 chord over B flat, which would be a harmonization of the melodic minor scale. So we're seeing the cross relations I was referring to was the fact that we had E flat going to E natural. That's what I was visualizing in my head, but for some reason I thought this should have been a B natural, but no, we're in the key of G minor now. We're no longer in the key of C minor. So then we have A, C, F sharp, and A, which is F sharp diminished over A, so that's 7, 6, and we expect a 4-2 chord to go to a chord a fifth below it that is in first inversion. So just like how 5-4-2 goes to 1, 4-4-2 goes to 7-6. This is much less common, but here we are seeing it. And then we have G, D, G, and B flat, which is our tonic triad in root position G minor. We then go to C, E flat, A, and C, which is A diminished in first inversion. So it would be a 2 diminished 6. And then we have D, D, F sharp, and A, which is D major in root position, which is our dominant. Okay, next cadence, we have an interesting cadence. It's a half cadence in the key of B flat major, and the B flat major cadence we have, or the half cadence we have, is not in root position, it's in first inversion. We saw another cadence like that recently, but yeah, they don't happen very often where we have inverted chords as the chord we actually cadence on. So here we have a B flat triad, we have D, A, D, and F, which actually, now that how do I want to look at this? We have kind of a cross relation here. We have F sharp and F natural, so the fact that we have this chord here, so if we look at the C right here, we have C, A, D, and F, which would be D minor 7 over C. If we look at this tone here, we have D, A, it's still just a D minor triad. And I think when we see D minor after D major, I think we've moved to the key of B flat. And this is not a common chord modulation, but a direct modulation, just like how he directly goes from one key to the next. And of course, we have to take these modulations with a grain of salt, because there are instrumental interludes in between each of the choral sections. So that being said, this might not be a direct modulation at all, but in the context of looking from phrase to phrase, really there is a lot of harmonic activity happening within the phrase, but here this phrase is in the key of B flat, and we are starting on a 3 chord. Passing tone in the bass, we then have B flat, D, and F, which is a root position B flat major triad. We do see 3 go to 1 from time to time, but it's a pretty unusual progression. Then we have A, B flat, E natural, and G. I think this A is an accented non-chord tone, and really this is E diminished over G, which would be 7-6 of 5, because E is the leading tone to F, and F is our dominant in the key of B flat. We then have F, C, F, and A, which is our dominant, our 5 chord, so that's scoring where we expect. We then get E flat again, so G, B flat, E flat, and B flat is E flat major over G natural, which is our 4 chord in the key of B flat in first inversion, so 5-4-6, 4-6, 5 going to 4-6, and then we cadence on F major. But the A is in the bass, so we cadence on a 5-6 chord. So this 4-6 is a passing chord that links the 2 5s. Kind of like how 7-6 links 2 tonics, which we will see later in this chorale, and you'll see in the majority of Bach's chorales, actually. So looking ahead to the next cadence, we have a perfect authentic cadence in the key of B flat major again. We start things off with a B flat major chord, as 5-6 wants to go to B flat in root position, B flat, F, D, and D. We then have E flat, G, and B flat, which is a root position E flat major triad that is a 4 chord. 2 passing tones in the upper voices, that's A, C, C, and E flat. So that would be A diminished over C, which would be 7-6, which is where 4 wants to go, so that passing 7 chord. And we'll probably go to a tonic, D, F, B flat, and D, which is B flat major over D, tonic triad. Passing tone in the bass, we then have F, F, B flat, and C, and I think what's happening here is this B is like a 4-3 suspension over the bass, and really the resolution happens on the next beat, even though we get some rotations of the voices. It's still just implying a 5 chord just with a suspension, or an accented non-chord tone, depending on how you look at it. I guess really I've been saying that I guess it's like really just depending on whether or not you mark this as an appoggiatura, as some people might do, or you're in your class, or if you follow a textbook, it might refer to that as an appoggiatura, because suspensions are typically tied values or syncopated values, and these are suspensions that are happening over the really just on the harmonic rhythm. So the fact that we get two iterations of the suspended tone is more of an idiom that Bach uses than something you would find in like a counterpoint class, for example. But yeah, this is, to me, it looks like a 4/3 suspension more than anything else, and I think that's true. But it also happens to be an appoggiatura. We then have a perfect authentic cadence where we cadence on B flat, D, F, and B flat root position, and the tonic is in the melody. All right, next phrase, we have a half cadence in the key of G minor. So we're looking for a way back to G minor at this point. And I think we could mark as early as the beginning of the phrase. Really, it doesn't sound like it modulates until around here. So let's just analyze in B flat until we see the harmonic minor going on. So we have a B flat major chord in root position, B flat, oh sorry, I wrote 3 because I was talking about G minor, B flat, F, and D, passing 7th in the bass. So that's still a tonic triad, just voices are rotated. We then have G minor, G, B flat, G, and D, which is a 6 chord in the key of B flat major. We then have the same triad, but an F natural in the bass, so F, B flat, G, and D. So that's taking this 6 chord and turning it into a 4/2, so no need to reanalyze it. And, you know, the more I think about it, I think maybe we'll just, I'm trying to hear this in my head, and the modulation happens, or the phrase starts to modulate here, but I think it would make sense for us to do that, to mark the beginning of the modulation at the G minor, even though we see this F in the bass here and the G minor above it, which is particularly unusual. We don't usually see a lot of tonic triads. This is kind of like a modulation zone, so really it's 6, 4, 2, and B flat, and then we get the ascending melodic minor scale in the bass. It's difficult to pinpoint exactly when it happens, but by the time we get to the next measure, we have moved to the key of G minor. But I think saying that we have a 1/7 chord in passing here is probably a more elegant approach than analytically than trying to force a modulation occurring over something that already implies G minor. So I think we're in G minor by this point. We have E natural, B flat, G, and C, again with that chord that kind of confused me earlier. This is not 4/4/2, but 4/6/5, because we're over the 3rd of the chord rather than the 7th. And that goes to D7 over F sharp, so 5/6/5, as opposed to 7/6. The chords are similar, except this one has a D. We then have G minor, G, A, D, and B flat. Very interesting, this G right here. So there's some counterpoint going on. And what ends up happening is that before we get the resolution, we get an interruption in the alto that changes the quality of the chord. So this is definitely a tonic triad, and instead of getting a second tonic triad, we get G, G, E natural, and B flat. So we get this ascending melodic minor passage that interrupts the chord resolving the way that we expect it to. So even though we have this 9/8 suspension over the bass, the chord quality changes above it, which defies our expectations. This is E diminished over G, which would be 7/6 of apologies. That would be 7/6 of 5 in the key of B flat major, but in the key of G minor, that would actually be 6 diminished 6. And we do see diminished 6 chords from time to time, but it's more common for us to see 4 chords like this. So we have E, G, G, and D. And B flat. Sorry, I'm reading the clef wrong. Yes, this would be a 6 diminished 6 chord, and that's a byproduct of the melodic minor scale, because we have that E natural rather than the E flat, which is diatonic to the key. And then we have D major in root position, and it's a half cadence, and really one of the hallmarks of Bach's half cadence is that we usually get the 5 of the chord in the melody. Alright, moving along to the next cadence, we have what I call an imperfect authentic cadence in the key of C major. It's kind of interesting to go from G minor to C major as they're not adjacent to one another on the circle of fifths, but here we are. I think we start off in G minor though because we do get another D major triad after the phrase ends, so D, D, F sharp, and A, and then we get G minor, G, D, G, and B flat, which is our tonic triad in root position. We then get A, C, F, and A. And I think between G minor and C major, the only chord that diatonically transfers between the two is F major. So this 7-6 chord, like we saw earlier, or some people might call it 5-6 of 3. In this case, this is not really how this is functioning, but I've taken a couple of harmony classes. Well, I've taken harmony with a couple of different teachers, or more specifically, I was a graduate student TAing in a harmony class, and I've with a couple of different teachers, and I saw it taught differently. Some teachers are okay with the 7. I had one teacher in particular that was adamant about the 7 resolving to 3 usually, and whenever it doesn't, it's not. It is a deviation from what it's expected of it, so marking it that way. In this case it clearly isn't. It's clearly deviating from what that expectation sets for us. But I think this is also where we modulate to the key of C major, and this is now 4-6 in the key of C major, and that goes actually where we expect it to. B natural, D, F, and G, which is G7 over B. It's a 5-6 chord, and that goes to a root position tonic triad, C, G, E, and G. Okay, then we have C, A, D, and F, giving me some C major prelude vibes. We get that D minor 7 over C, which is 2-4-2. In anticipation for the cadence, we usually see 2-6-5, but here we are with 2-4-2. And then we have B, G, D, and F, another 5-6-5 chord, before we cadence on C major, C, G, C, and E. Okay, next cadence we have a perfect authentic cadence in the key of G minor, which I think, again, sort of with this idea of just reintroducing G minor right at the beginning of the phrase, this is a direct modulation. The instruments might have set this up differently, but from what we can see here, it's a direct modulation. We have B flat, G, D, and G, which is a first inversion tonic triad. We then have E flat, or I guess it could be E flat, or it could be E flat 7, or E flat major 7, apologies. So 6-7, or if we look at this as a suspension, like a 7-6, which it kind of looks like, or this is an accented non-chord tone, it looks more like C minor over E flat, which would be 4-6. Either way, they're both pretty much achieving the same thing. We then have D, D, F, and A, with B flat here, so I think it's less likely for this to be a minor dominant, and actually similarly to the previous phrase where we started with an accented non-chord tone, I really do think this is just a B flat major triad in first inversion, so 3-6. 4-6 going to 3-6 is kind of unusual, but still, I think that's what's happening here. And then we have E natural, C, G, and C, so we have some E natural against E flat, again happening in close proximity. So this C major chord in first inversion is just uppercase 4-6 before we get F sharp, A, and C. So we get some passing tones or some otherwise non-chord tones going on in these voices, the lower 3 voices, and we get a root position 7 chord, F sharp diminished, before we go to our tonic, G, B flat, D, and B flat in root position. And both of these Gs are chord tones, so no need to mark them. And I just realized I marked this as a plagal cadence, not as a perfect authentic cadence. Then we have C, E flat, G, and A. That's A minor 7 flat 5 over C, so 2-6-5. We know that Bach loves his 2-6-5 chords. And then we have D, A, F sharp, and A, which is a D major triad in root position. 2-6-5 typically goes to 5. And then we go to our tonic triad in root position, G minor, G, B flat, D, and G. Alright, last cadence. Maybe the most interesting phrase in the entire chorale, because we have this fragment right here in the key of C minor, And I think this is just a direct modulation to C minor, at least in the context of just the vocal music, that then transitions to the key of G minor mid-phrase. So we have F, B natural, G, D and G, which is G7 over F, which is 5-4-2, and of course we'd expect that to go to 1-6, E flat, C, E, and G. It's a pretty typical progression, pretty much always functions that way. The only variation we see is sometimes we see 5-4-2 going to 1 in root position because it's part of a larger passing figure, but typically when we are just seeing the progression on the harmonic rhythm, 5-4-2 typically goes to 1-6. We then have D, F, F, and A. However, I think this A is an accented non-chord tone, and really we're looking at B natural here, and this is just melodic minor. And this is B diminished over D, which would be 7-6, before we go to C minor, which is a root position tonic triad, 1-6 going to 7-6 going to 1. It's a very common progression. And I think this is where we modulate back to G minor. And this would now be our 4 chord. In root position, we then have G minor, G, D, G, and B flat, which is our root position tonic triad, before we go to, interestingly, A major, A, C sharp, G, and A, or even more specifically, A7, before we get some counterpoint in the inner voices, kind of hinting at D minor in second inversion here before going down and enclosing the F sharp and the D with these C sharps and this E natural here before we cadence. Sorry, this is 5-7 of 5, not 5-7. And then we cadence on D major. It's a very fascinating cadence, the B flat going down to the A. But regardless, that's the chorale for today. I know with these chorales where I'm only really focusing on the choral writing for Bach, the instrumental section is cut out, and that very well might add context to why the harmony does what it does. However, I'm really only focusing on Bach's choral music, or Bach's, the texture of Bach's vocal music. So when you see the chorale here redacted, with the instrumental sections redacted, please bear that in mind. But that being said, this is a very fascinating chorale. The harmony pretty much functions exactly the way that you would expect it to. We had to fudge some modulations here and there, but I think all in all, what's most important is that we identify the fact that modulations are in fact happening, and you can hear a key moving from one to the other. And whether or not that happens over a longer period of time or more, or whether or not it's more of an instant in which that happens. But that being said, thank you so much for watching the video today. Thank you so much for continuing to support the channel. I really appreciate the fact that people are watching my videos. It makes it so awesome. It motivates me to continue to make them. And I look forward to tomorrow's analysis. I hope you take care.